everybody. Welcome to the Shrimp City Report, Charleston and the Low Country's finest podcast for entertainment, leisure living, and professional wrestling today, right, DJ?
Yeah, absolutely. Excited for round two.
I know. We actually have a champion on today, a heavyweight champion of Major League Wrestling, MLW, that are going to be here April 12th for the MLW New Japan Pro Wrestling and CMLL Fantastica Mania USA 2026. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, you get that all in one setting.
Yeah. Well, today we have Killer Kross, and he's the champ and very impressive and very well-known professional wrestler across the planet. How you doing today, Kross? Or can I
Good.
call you that?
Yeah, call me Sally.
Okay. All right. To be known as Sally.
Yes. Or Patricia.
So I was reading, you're from New York, huh? Would that be the city or the state of New York?
I lived in both, but I've spent more time in Rockland County, New York, which is about, approximately 50 miles north of New York City.
Then I guess you grew up there, went to school, all that business.
A little bit. Then I moved up to Canada. I went to school in Canada for quite a while.
You know, you're close enough to Canada and New York, I assume, that it wasn't that big of a change.
No, it was pretty huge, actually. I moved into
really?
Toronto.
Mhm.
Yeah, Toronto's a massive melting pot, for the entire world. The entire planet's there. I mean, you've got people from America, you've got people from Mexico, you've got people from South America, you have people from Africa, you have people from Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Russia, China, India, everywhere from Asia. Everyone is in Toronto. So when I was living, in Rockland County, it's a lot of deep generations of families that were there that probably moved over and migrated from Europe, like, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations ago. So it's a lot of Irish, I don't know, Western Europeans. But yeah, in Toronto, I mean, the easiest way to put it, very, very different, very bilingual. Everybody speaks multiple languages there. And, it's bilingual. So English, French.
So where did the wrestling, interest in wrestling, was that always there from the beginning? Was that, do they have, I know it sounds silly, is wrestling a big thing in Canada as well as much as in America?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I grew up watching wrestling in the United States. Growing up in New York, I watched Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, and, Bret the Hitman Hart he was a prolific figure, for Canadian, positive nationalism. And, he was a massive figure in WWF a long time ago. And his family and all of his relatives are, very well known in the business. Natty Neidhart obviously is still continuing to wave the flag. So Canada's, they're massive into professional wrestling. And there's also even people outside of Bret Hart's family that were huge too. So definitely a huge fan base there.
Yeah, and so you were around Toronto, like you said, multilingual. Did you have to learn other languages as a necessity, or did you pick anything else up?
Yeah, they beat me up and put me in jail and said, "You better figure out how to." No, it's optional. It's optional in elementary school and high school. So I did my best to learn French. I understand more French than I actually speak, and I can read it actually very well. And there's a lot of road signs, especially when you start traveling east into Quebec and Montreal. The road signs are in English and in French. And I thought that would greatly help me when I would visit France, and they have a totally different dialect and version of French than the French Canadians, and they don't like it. They made it very clear they did not like our French.
Find yourself.
I had a lot of friends I had a lot of friends that immigrated over from former Yugoslavia when the war happened, and I actually started learning Serbian and Croatian while I was there as well. I didn't even know I had a Croatian last name because my family is, on my mother's side, is like, I don't know, 3 or 4 generations American. And I haven't looked at the family tree in a minute, but the last name Kesar, which is Kesar, it's actually pronounced Kesar. I don't make people do that in the United States because they'll spit on me. That's a Croatian last name. It's a very old one. It's from like the 7th century, I think.
Yeah, I would consider that very old. Yeah, we're pretty proud in Charleston. I think the first house that was built here was like 1712. And then when I talked to anybody from Europe or, God forbid, Italy, they're like, oh, well, we have houses built before Jesus Christ. So your parents came well, how many generations or whatever. What was your family like? Did you have a big family or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have like 6 uncles and an aunt, all married with kids on my father's side, and then on my mother's side, she has 2 sisters and a brother, all married with kids. So pretty big family. Pretty big family.
Well, dude, I assume with all those kids and everything, were y'all playing sports growing up?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was born in '85, so we were outside all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was part of that generation. There's no such thing as cell phones or smartphones. None of that. We were outside playing all the time. So
And your father had a combat sports background, right?
yeah, with boxing and wrestling, and then eventually jiu-jitsu that blew up. Once UFC started and it was on the native reserves, it was like that thing you weren't
Right.
supposed to know about or talk about. That was like before it was on Spike TV. We were all very deep into that. My father was training with all those guys and trained some of them even too. So
Okay, so some of that must have rubbed off on you. You know other combat sports, of course, besides professional wrestling. So what is sambo? I did check that out. That's like an old Soviet type of fighting.
yeah, yep. It's considered a Russian martial art,
Okay.
and it's. I mean, the easiest way to explain it to somebody, it'd be like a combination of karate, freestyle kickboxing, judo, and a little bit of jujitsu. So it's probably the closest thing that people like. If people watched sambo, even though they wear uniforms, it looks a lot like mixed martial arts.
Well, it sounds like it's got a nice quiver stuff that you can incorporate in professional wrestling. Who trained you? How'd you get started actually in the ring?
My father, actually. I was taught boxing. I was taught catch wrestling by him. Initially, my first jiu-jitsu lessons were from him as well. And yeah, then I just branched off into different schools and academies and stuff like that. I trained with a guy named Maurício Veo, who was part of the Chute box camp in Brazil. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Maurício Shogun Rua or Vanderlei Silva.
Yeah, Silva for sure.
Yeah. So Maurício Veo was he was like my first coach outside of my father. And he was training guys up in Toronto, Canada at the time. He came all the way up from Brazil. And I'm pretty sure, I know his brother Dita is probably still up there as well, but they opened up a school. They started with Toronto BJJ, and then they opened up a school called Lucha, which is Portuguese for anything goes. And I was training there for a little bit, and I got my first introduction to Vale Tudo. So that was pretty good. Lucha was actually Portuguese for evolution. Vale Tudo is anything goes. They're synonymous in my head.
I guess it starts running together sometimes.
Yes,
like,
I don't speak Portuguese. Shock, surprise.
So you've been in several promotions. I guess FSW is probably the first one that you were in, or is that where you first started wrestling?
First one I was in, first place I was wrestling, first place I trained.
How long did you train before they threw you in the ring?
Like 30 days.
30 days. I guess that's a testament to your skill at that point, or at least you sound trainable.
I was training 7 days a week. I was loving it. And I, just tried to be a sponge because of some of my combat sports backgrounds. I already had a pretty good idea and feel for learning how to break my fall. Break falls obviously is something that you have to learn in professional wrestling. I don't think that's exposing the business, but the reality of it is you learn how to break your fall. But when you're going a million miles an hour and you're sweating and you're tired, or some guys working hurt, or just a freak accident, doesn't matter if you know how to break your fall, you still land the wrong way. I mean, that shit happens all the time, unfortunately. But yeah, I started there, and it was a battle royal. The very first match I had was a battle royal.
That sounds like a good thing to start, I guess, cut your teeth with on that. For those of us who haven't been in a battle royal, and for some of the listeners, that's when you have multiple people in the ring, and
they're all fighting.
Yeah, I was always wondering about that. Who do you pair off with? How do you pair? I mean, is it just it's fighting by opportunity? You just whoever's in front of you, pretty much, or?
I mean, it's usually no DQ, so I just try to kick somebody in the nuts right away because it's allowed.
Well, that's how well, I don't know about the nut kicking, but you beat 39 people to get the title that you are now holding. Y'all did that. That was at the Battle Riot, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, Battle Riot. God, was it? They're already at 8 now. Of course, you did some Global Force, right, with Jeff Jarrett. Did you go to Lucha Underground after Global?
I think it was before and during. I was in I was on the tail end of season 1, 2, but I was doing darks because they weren't ready to introduce the character.
Yeah, the White Rabbit.
The team there.
Yeah, White Rabbit, yeah.
they didn't want to waste anybody's introduction or waste anybody's time in general. Like they were very, very adamant and very skillful in terms of making everyone meaningful in that show. And that was one of the most attractive things to me about that whole entire team. Like I can never say enough good things about Chris DeJoseph, Chris Roach, who was there as well, just everybody that they had there, and Robert Rodriguez being a part of that as well was a massive, massive
That's
help.
right.
El Rey Network. That was one of the best experiences I've ever had working with a team of people. They really cared about every single thing the audience was going to watch, and they wanted to make sure the talent was comfortable. They made sure people were taken care of. Like, it was wonderful. I have nothing but good things to say about that experience. It was really amazing. And I really learned more about professional wrestling there than I did anywhere with the exception of WWE, because we were working with cameras. There was television style rehearsals, understanding which direction to play towards in terms of crowd and cameras and moments and stuff. And there were so many different types of people on the cast and crew of that show from different walks of life. I feel like I really grew as a person just being around those people.
Did a lot of this stuff stick? Because I'm interested to see if like you ended up picking up a bunch of this stuff for like Blue Evening as well, which I know that was last year, right?
Yeah. I didn't necessarily learn anything from Lucha Underground that I could use at Blue Evening, but I can tell you everything I learned in terms of working with cameras as a professional wrestler, I took all that to WWE. I took all of that. I mean, everything that you saw in NXT, Lucha Underground basically taught me exactly how and what I needed to be doing when I went to NXT, to the point where people were coming up to me many, many times at the end of every show saying, "Who told you to do this? Who told you to do that?" I said, "Nobody." And they said, "Well, how did you know to do that? Are you lying?" I said, "No, I'm not lying. I've worked with people who have previously worked in WWE on Lucha Underground. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Otherwise, I would have never taken the job here. I know what you guys need me to do." And they were just like, "Well, that's a first." Which was great. It was very flattering to have people that you look up to that are running shows that are multimillionaires coming up and saying, "How did you do that?" It was cool. They really prepared me for everything in my career working there. But in terms of Blue Evening, I'm sent scripts. I'm contacted by people all the time for film projects and television and movies and stuff like that. And I will admit, I am not necessarily picky in a pretentious way, but I know what I'm going to excel at. I know what I'm going to be very good at bringing to life. And I am always looking for challenges. I think it's good to be challenged. With Blue Evening, I looked at that and I saw it as a challenge, but the story read very well to me off the script. It felt very real. It felt very personal. And I felt like the way it made me feel, like I'm not like an easily emotionally baited person through literature. I'm not. I'm just not. But I read the script and I got choked up reading it. I said, if I feel this way, something's wrong with me. If I feel this way, I think normal people would really, really like to see this. And so we brought it to life, and that was a great learning experience. I tried to shadow everybody as much as I could on set, director, the post-editing process. I learned everything I possibly could being there. I never took a seat. I was always up. I was always watching everything. It was a really good learning experience, and it's very successful right now. And it's
I've seen like the trailers and like a bunch of stuff. They have like their clips and scenes on YouTube. The cinematography is beautiful, and so is the writing itself. It's great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think it shows in your work also. Number one, your attitude, talking to you, where you meet so many people just in every walk of life that may be obtuse to taking any kind of criticism, constructive or whatever. I'm sure in a business of egos, whether it's Hollywood or professional wrestling, that there are people that get hindered sometimes by their attitudes. You seem like you've learned a ton. Lucha Underground was the pinnacle of all cinematic wrestling, and I think WWE tried to bring a lot of that stuff in. TNA for a while was doing pretty well with all the Hardy stuff, but I think your attitude is what is the most impressive thing of this interview so far.
Thank you. I mean, it's life. That's the way I look at everything. It's ups and downs. And I think gratitude is a paramount virtue that we have to put that at the forefront of everything going on. We have to remain grateful for everything that's happening. And yeah, there's bumps in the road and things don't go according to plan, but like things can always be worse. And things are good. Things are really, in my opinion, things are really good right now. I'm very happy with everything happening, and I wouldn't change anything. I really sincerely wouldn't.
Excellent. So are you glad to be off the road, or did you travel a lot with WWE?
Oh yeah, every single weekend we were in a different city, and then before when we had house shows,
Mm-hmm.
you'd if we were on SmackDown, you'd leave Thursday, and then you get home Tuesday probably, or maybe Monday,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Monday. But if you were doing Monday Night Raw, maybe you leave, maybe you leave Friday or Saturday morning, and you do a show Saturday, Sunday, and then you have Raw on Monday when you have the house shows, or you have media, or you're traveling overseas with the UK tours, which were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed actually traveling to Saudi Arabia for the shows as well. Learning about that culture there was super cool. And yeah, we were traveling a lot. Ironically, I think I'm traveling more now as an independent
Mm-hmm.
than I was with WWE. I'm in sometimes 2 or 3 different major cities a weekend.
Oh, wow. Is
Yeah.
it hard to keep a regiment going when you're traveling compared to like versus home base? Like training, food, any of that stuff?
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
So do you travel mostly with Scarlett Bordeaux, your partner, and also a professional wrestling star?
Sometimes we have opposite schedules.
Mhm.
She has a paranormal show that she produces. It's called Chamber of Horrors. It's on
Mhm.
YouTube. They have their own channel. And they do legitimate paranormal investigations on places, mainly in the United States, but we've done investigations all over the world. Some of them haven't been recorded. And she's creating episodes out of them with guests and stuff like that. And she uses a lot of different type of equipment. And not every place we go to is haunted, so we don't bother making those episodes because that would be a bore and a letdown to watch. But any types of places we go to that gets activity,
Mhm.
she'll produce the footage into an episode and she puts it up on YouTube totally for free.
That is awesome.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
sort
I
of.
did not know
It's
that.
sort of
Wow.
awesome. It's awesome
Yeah.
for you guys because you
Yeah.
guys get to watch it. I have to be there when these things are talking to us, and I'm just like, hopefully we don't get an attachment. Like, I really don't want to bring this thing home with us.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm glad you guys think it's awesome.
Listen, from the White Rabbit persona to Killer Kross to Karrion Kross, you have such an intimidating and malevolent presence often that I'd be surprised if, something didn't jump into you at one of those paranormal things.
Me too. Me too. I think you're right about that.
Yeah. We'll wrap it up a little bit with a little bit of talk about the show that's coming up. So one thing that's really cool about the show that's going to be in Charleston on April 16th is it includes stars from MLW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and CMLL. For my money, those promotions are doing as good as they have. I think New Japan's having a nice resurgence now. How do you feel about mixing it up with stars from across the world?
I think that's exactly what we should be doing.
Mhm.
I think that, doing things in the manner of a monopoly is definitely going to not only stale out wrestling programs for fans that want to watch things weekly or episodically, but like just incorporating unpredictability and different companies and different wrestlers and different cultures onto one program. In my opinion, we're in the age where a wrestling show needs to be a bit of a variety act. I don't think every
Mhm.
match, if you have 7 matches on a show or 8 matches on a show, you don't want the matches to feel the same,
Mhm.
bell to bell. I think having different chemistries and people from different places, having a little bit of lucha, having a little bit of hybrid lucha, some British strong style, some, all Japan style, some King's Road. A lot of people won't even know what that is, but I'm, a wrestling nerd.
Right.
Surprise, I'm in the business. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but like, a Johnny Saint style of like, having all of that in one show, I think is the way to go in terms of giving the audience what they could be looking for, whether they realize they're looking for it or not. I'm pumped to wrestle people from CMLL and New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I'd even absolutely consider going to Japan. In fact, actually very interested in going to Japan. That's a bridge that we're going to have to cross in the near future, I think.
Yeah, I think that a lot of my wrestling friends and brethren, your name often comes up when we're discussing New Japan and some people that would shake it up over there. That's funny you mentioned that because I think that was one of my friends asked me, you gotta ask Kross about New Japan. So,
I'm absolutely interested for sure.
and so I guess the only way you could watch Johnny Saint stuff is watching old videos of World of Sport. He was not contemporary to our ages, I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right. We appreciate you coming by. I know you've got a busy schedule today. Killer Kross will be appearing at the MLW New Japan Pro Wrestling Presents CMLL Fantastica Mania USA 2026. And MLW is doing a special for all Charlestonians, or frankly, anybody that comes to the show, for $10 to see the show. And we will follow up with the card as soon as it gets solid on our Instagram. And we will say a fair adieu to Killer Kross, and take care of yourself and Scarlett. And we'll see you in Charleston.
See you there, my friend.
All right. Thanks.